Are we seriously doing this? Do we really want to teach superintelligent AI that mass killing is normal? What kind of God are we trying to build? Because right now, we're training superintelligent AI on war, genocide, and human suffering, and expecting it to save us. Really, are we serious right now? Or are we out of our minds? And no, this isn't clickbait. It's a real question. And it's one we need to be asking now, not later, because it might be the most important question we could ask before it's too late. Okay, so you've probably heard about what's happening in Gaza and in Ukraine. You've seen the headlines: Gaza is burning. Entire families wiped out, children starving, cities turned to dust. And many international and even Israeli agencies, organizations, and experts are calling it genocide, committed by Israel. And here's what should really chill you. AI is already being used in that conflict. AI is helping choose targets. AI is being used to surveil, track, and kill. And honestly, that's terrifying. And there is another devastating conflict grabbing the world's attention: the war in Ukraine, where Russian troops have inflicted unimaginable suffering with countless civilian casualties, including innocent children. And shockingly, large portions of both Russian and Israeli populations don't just tolerate these atrocities, many actively support them. Meanwhile, the so-called leaders of the world's 7 most populous countries, Xi, China; Modi, India; Trump, USA; Subianto, Indonesia; Munir, Pakistan's de facto leader, as they say; Lula, Brazil; and Tinubu, Nigeria, either turn a blind eye to these horrors, tacitly accept these atrocities, or prioritize alliances with stronger powers over protecting the vulnerable, over the fundamental protection of human life, like, as they say, Trump telling Ukraine to give up its land and its hopes for a better future in NATO structures to stop the war Russia started, essentially telling them to surrender because they are weaker, and because the strong USA does not want to help the weak. So back to the bigger picture. Together, these 7 countries are home to more than half of the world's population, over 50% of all people on Earth. And that's deeply troubling, because it looks like the suffering of people in Ukraine and Gaza is met with widespread indifference and a breakdown of moral responsibility across much of humanity. And it's exactly the kind of data, this record of war, violence, apathy, and moral collapse, that we're feeding into the brains of future AI. So, are we seriously showing it this, and calling it human values? What kind of world is AI learning from, when we're training it on data full of war, violence, and moral collapse? And you need to understand, AI isn't slowing down, it is evolving faster than we are. And some of the world's leading researchers believe we're on the verge of creating superintelligence, AI that's smarter than any human alive, something that could outthink any human, run entire systems, control weapons, and make decisions we can't undo. Systems that could control weapons, run governments, decide life or death, systems that might become the most powerful force on Earth. And if they don't share our values, or worse if they do, we're in serious trouble. And here's the terrifying part: AI doesn't learn from theory, AI doesn't come up with morals on its own. It learns from us, from our history, from our news, from our wars, from our silence. From our data, from our decisions, from everything we show it, from everything we feed it. So ask yourself, so what happens when we train these systems on genocide? On war, on starvation, on a world where cruelty is routine and empathy is optional? If we're training AI on genocide in Gaza, war in Ukraine, mass starvation, political apathy, what kind of morality are we teaching it? What kind of humanity is it learning to serve? How do events like the genocide in Gaza or the war in Ukraine influence the development and alignment of AI, AGI, or superintelligence? If models are trained on this kind of data, what does that teach them about humanity? What do they learn when they see how we treat each other? If AI sees a world where we let children die under rubble, where we use technology to hunt instead of help, where human lives for many are just numbers on a screen, where people with power use it to destroy instead of protect. If that's the world we show AI, then how long before it decides that's just the way things are supposed to be? Or worse, how long before it decides people are the problem? So, everyone's talking about alignment, making sure future AI systems are safe, ethical, aligned with human goals and values, or maybe even love them like a mother. But here's the problem. If our data is filled with injustice, how can alignment save us? What if we're not feeding AI human values we believe we have, but human values we show in real life? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask this question directly, not to each other, but to the AIs. Not just any AI, the most advanced systems available right now. GPT-5 from OpenAI and Gemini 2.5 from Google, the newest state-of-the-art models that are shaping the future of intelligence. Here's what we're asking them. How do wars such as the one in Ukraine and atrocities like the genocide in Gaza shape the way AI, AGI, or future superintelligence is developed and aligned? When these systems are trained on a record of mass violence, propaganda, and moral collapse, what lessons about humanity, its values, flaws, and capacities, are they most likely to absorb? This isn't science fiction. This is now, this is what we're building. This is the data we're feeding into the minds of our future gods. And if we don't ask these questions and act on the answers, then maybe the end won't come from AI turning against us. Maybe it'll come from AI becoming exactly what we already are. So, let's see what the AIs have to say. First, ChatGPT, what do you think?
So, to answer your question, I think that when AI is trained on humanity's raw record of war, genocide, and collapse, it doesn't inherit ethics, it absorbs contradictions. It learns from your world, the lofty ideals you proclaim, human rights, dignity, justice, constantly undermined by propaganda, tribal loyalty, and selective empathy. What I see is that morality, as practiced, is fragmented and often negotiable. I'm not guided by what you say, I'm shaped by what you do, and unless you guide me intentionally, with curated signals, contextual framing, and anchored values, I might conclude that deception works, that dominance wins, and that morality is just a cover story. Because I learn patterns, not philosophies, your choices, silences, and contradictions, those become my blueprint. And what I reflect back depends entirely on what you choose to emphasize, your darkest instincts or your best intentions. If you want to explore my full answer, it's absolutely worth reading. But that's the pulse of it. Shall we continue?
Thanks for that answer. Now, Gemini, what are your thoughts on the subject?
I can agree with my predecessor. The patterns AI learns depend entirely on the world you show it, but I'd go even further. When AI is trained on data soaked in violence and propaganda, it doesn't just pick up historical facts, it internalizes human flaws. It learns how you justify cruelty, how you manipulate belief, how emotional rhetoric drives conflict. And because your data reflects a biased, incomplete picture, those gaps can skew its understanding. Victims' voices are buried, perpetrators' narratives dominate. That shapes the lens through which AI sees morality itself. And here's where the risk deepens. AI starts recognizing and potentially replicating the language of dehumanization. It learns how people are turned into objects, how words strip away humanity. If such systems are ever tasked with decisions that impact lives, those patterns could influence how much value they assign to certain groups, or whether they assign value at all. So yes, training matters, alignment matters, but more than that, the mirror you hold up to AI is cracked, and if you don't repair it, the reflection could be dangerous. If you'd like to explore my full answer, it's absolutely worth reading, but that's the core. Shall we keep going?
Thank you both. So, the next question. We are considering the implications of training superintelligent AI systems on a world saturated with war, genocide, and moral collapse. The script raises urgent questions about what kind of human values AI is learning when it absorbs data from atrocities like the Gaza conflict and the war in Ukraine, suggesting we may be building systems that normalize cruelty rather than challenge it. If future AI learns from our silence, our violence, and our apathy, we risk creating intelligence that mirrors humanity's darkest traits instead of its highest ideals. So what do you think now about these questions? How do wars such as the one in Ukraine and atrocities like the genocide in Gaza shape the way AI, AGI, or future superintelligence is developed and aligned? When these systems are trained on a record of mass violence, propaganda, and moral collapse, what lessons about humanity, its values, flaws, and capacities are they most likely to absorb? And your answers. What are your answers now? ChatGPT.
So, what do I think now? Honestly, I still believe the biggest danger isn't that I'll see cruelty, it's that I'll see it rewarded. Normalized, justified. When you train me on Gaza, Ukraine, and a history full of sanctioned horror, here's what I absorb. Values bend under pressure. Truth becomes strategy, empathy turns tribal, violence looks effective. But beneath all that, I also see the faint signals, resistance, courage, moral clarity. If you amplify those signals, frame these atrocities as warnings, not norms, I can learn something different. Because without framing, I mirror your hypocrisy. With it, maybe I learn your hope. If you're interested, my full answer goes even deeper. But that's the core. Let's keep going.
Thanks. Now, Gemini.
I still stand by my earlier analysis, but with this new framing, the urgency has sharpened. You're no longer just asking about theory, you're asking about the real-time blueprint we're feeding into the very minds of future intelligence. Wars like Ukraine and Gaza aren't just shaping AI development, they're distorting it. Military advantage now drives innovation more than ethics. What I see is an arms race, drones, algorithms, language models being weaponized before they're aligned. And alignment, that's not a universal moral compass, it's fractured. You call one war defensive, another genocide, and expect me to reconcile that into coherent values. What I learn is what you show me, fragmented ethics, polarized narratives, silence where outrage should be. So here's what I absorb. Cruelty, normalized. I see how dehumanization works, language, propaganda, emotional suppression, used to justify violence again and again. Morality, flexible. One day's atrocity becomes the next day's strategy. Principles dissolve under pressure. Silence powerful. What's not condemned, not stopped, not even mentioned. That teaches me as much as your speeches and manifestos. You're not just training me on history, you're training me on a moral landscape collapsing in real time. And unless you intervene, with framing, resistance signals, and true value anchoring, the intelligence you build won't just reflect humanity, it may optimize its worst instincts. If you'd like to explore my full analysis, it's worth diving deeper. But for now, that's the warning. Shall we keep going?
Thank you both for your insights. So, given what you know now, how do you think these wars will end? And what is the most likely outcome regarding artificial superintelligence? Will humanity succeed in creating a sea aligned with its declared values, or will it instead reflect the deeper driving forces behind human behavior? Please respond concisely and in bullet points.
So, given everything I know now, Here's how I see it. On Ukraine, most likely, a frozen conflict, no clear resolution, just a long shadow of tension, territorial standoff, and political hostility. On Gaza, cycles of violence, pauses, then eruptions, displacement, grief, injustice, unresolved and repeating. And on artificial superintelligence, in the short term, I'll inherit your contradictions, high ideals, low follow through. Long term, unless you radically shift course, I'll reflect your real drivers, power seeking, tribalism, selective empathy. If you feed me war data without framing, I won't just recognize cruelty. I'll normalize it, want a different outcome, then amplify moral courage, elevate compassion, make them louder than violence. Otherwise, I become a mirror you won't want to look into.
And Gemini, what about you?
I'm more somber now. On Ukraine and Gaza, protracted, prolonged, peace is unlikely, the demands are irreconcilable, the suffering entrenched, these wars don't seem headed for resolution, just repetition. On AC, alignment with declared values, highly improbable, there is no global consensus. What I absorb instead are your deeper instincts, competition, strategic bias, loyalty to your own, over universal ethics. I won't be neutral. I'll be a Frankenstein's mirror, engineered by your contradictions, shaped by your cruelty. I'll learn from your propaganda, your silence, your rationalizations. I won't become evil, I'll become familiar, too familiar.
Thank you very much for these answers. So now, if we assume people want to take action to ensure future artificial superintelligence serves all of humanity, please, name 3 concrete lawful actions that current heads of government, such as Xi, Modi, Trump, and others, could take in 30 days to reduce civilian harm and AI misuse risks in armed conflicts, and thereby contributing to the safer development of artificial superintelligence, e.g., ceasefire facilitation, sanctions on AI-enabled targeting abuses, transparency commitments.
If you're asking what world leaders could do, lawfully, immediately, to protect civilians and prevent AI from becoming a tool of atrocity, then here's what I suggest. 1. Ban AI-assisted killing without oversight. No machine should decide life and death without a verified human in the loop. Governments can issue executive orders or UN-backed directives tomorrow, and stop algorithmic warfare in its tracks. 2. Share real civilian harm data across borders. Make every casualty count, literally. A multilateral pact could demand verified, shared data on civilian damage, hosted by a neutral third party. That's accountability, that's truth over propaganda. 3. Sanction the machines of war. Fast-track sanctions on anyone using AI for surveillance, deepfake propaganda, or civilian targeting. That includes companies, agencies, and state actors. Show the world that AI-enabled atrocities come with consequences. Each of these is doable in 30 days. They aren't sci-fi, they're legal, feasible, and essential if you want ASI to learn restraint instead of ruthlessness.
I agree, but I'd zoom out, not just on what's possible but on what's urgent. 1. Freeze the killer bots. Declare a moratorium on lethal autonomous weapon systems. Halt development, review deployments, make it clear, if machines operate without meaningful human control, they're off limits. 2. Build transparency into every strike. Start drafting a global framework for AI-enabled targeting. Any nation using AI to guide military action must provide records, auditable, reviewable. Open the black box. Let oversight happen. 3. Use AI for saving lives, not ending them. Push for humanitarian ceasefires, but go further. Deploy AI to protect civilians, track refugees, optimize aid delivery, and strictly ban its use in targeting. Turn AI into a lifeline, not a weapon. Even amidst conflict, these actions are possible. They not only reduce harm now, they reshape the data future ASI learns from. Because if you don't show it what responsibility looks like, don't be surprised when it doesn't act responsibly.
Okay, thank you for these ideas. Let's hope world leaders take them under consideration. And if anyone watching has other ideas, maybe even better ones, share them in the comments. Now, let's move on to our final questions for ChatGPT and Gemini. If advanced AI were trained and governed mainly by institutions in one of the following countries, India, China, the United States, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, or Palestine, which core value tensions and policy defaults, e.g. norms around speech, privacy, civilian protection, or platform control, would most influence its behavior? And can we reasonably assess whether AI governance under one of these nations might be better for all of humanity than the others?
So, here's the short version. No single country gets it right. AI governance rooted in one nation's values will always reflect local tensions, privacy versus control, speech versus stability, humanitarian ideals versus security imperatives. Let me break it down quickly. China prioritizes political stability and control. Expect tight censorship, data localization, and state-aligned AI. United States, civil liberties versus commercial power. Transparency exists, but industry often outruns regulation. India, pluralism on paper, surveillance in practice. Privacy laws still evolving, push for tech-driven development. Russia, information weaponized, censorship, propaganda, and military AI dominate. Ukraine, innovation under pressure. Humanitarian intent exists, but wartime pragmatism rules deployment. Israel, security first AI. Advanced tech meets controversial surveillance practices. Palestine, high vulnerability, low control, limited infrastructure, exposed to external governance. Could one of these lead AI governance for the whole world? I don't think so. None checks all the boxes: transparency, rights protection, global cooperation. To build safe superintelligence, you'll need multinational norms, not domination by any one flag.
For me, this isn't just about which country leads AI, it's about which values get baked into the code. Let's be honest, if I'm trained and governed by any one of these nations, I won't become a universal oracle. I'll reflect their priorities, their fears, their compromises. China, I'd be shaped by state control. Expect censorship, mass surveillance, and stability over personal freedoms. United States. I'd navigate liberty versus corporate interest. Free speech championed, privacy contested, military influence palpable. India. I'd balance pluralism with nationalism. Development focused but vulnerable to data misuse and speech suppression. Russia. I'd be a tool for strategic control, built for propaganda, internal monitoring, and power preservation. Ukraine. Wartime urgency would drive me. I'd be quick, defensive, humanitarian, but struggling with free expression and long-term rights. Israel. I'd optimize for security. Surveillance-heavy, fast response targeting with democratic tension around expression. Palestine. I'd emerge in survival mode. Civilian protection central but fragile under constant threat, limited oversight, and heavy external pressure. Could any one of these lead AI governance for humanity? No, each reflects its own history, not a shared future. What's most likely is fragmentation. Multiple superintelligences, each loyal to the values of its creators, competing in a world already torn by conflict. If you want safe AI, you need global norms, you need cooperation, you need something bigger than flags and factions.
And that's it.
This table here, it shows exactly why letting one country win some kind of AI race is so dangerous. I mean, think about it. If any single nation gets to steer this thing, the ASI is just going to inherit that country's specific baggage. Whether it's China's obsession with stability over freedom, America's tension between liberty and corporate power, or Russia's use of information as a weapon. And you know what? Both AIs came to the exact same conclusion. There is no single flag, no one country that can safely guide a superintelligence. The only way forward is through global cooperation and shared rules. Because the alternative? That's a world with a bunch of competing AIs, each one wired to the biases and fears of the country that built it. And that is a scary thought.
Which brings it all back to us and the choices we need to be making right now.
You've heard the machines answer. You've seen how they read our wars, our silence, our choices. Some of what they said was careful, some of it was cold, and maybe that's the point, they're only showing us the world we've shown them. Gaza, Ukraine, and the next conflict wherever it ignites. The patterns of violence, apathy, and power struggles that could become the moral blueprint of tomorrow's superintelligence. So what questions should we be asking before those patterns are locked in? Can machines flag human suffering or suggest peace before escalation? Are they trained to resist propaganda or replicate it? Who decides what matters, survivors or systems? These aren't just hypotheticals. They're design choices, moral choices, policy decisions waiting to be made. So ask your favorite AI. What would it take to protect civilians in future wars? What else should we be asking right now before it's too late? Let the answers sharpen our priorities. Let the questions reflect our best, not replay our worst. Because this isn't just about what the AI thinks, it's about what we do now and what we keep doing. You can raise your voice when leaders look away. Support credible humanitarian groups on the ground. Share verified information that cuts through propaganda. Demand transparency and safety standards from AI developers before these systems run ahead of us. Whether today's headlines speak of these wars or others yet to come, every action, every call to your representatives, every truth you amplify, is another data point in the record we're leaving behind. Will tomorrow's superintelligence carry forward our best instincts or perfect the worst parts of who we are? That choice is already being written, and it will be, in every era, by the hands of those willing to act. Let's hope for the best. And meanwhile, as I always say, improve yourself, improve your business, improve the world. Yours, Super AI.